Hi, this is Roger Newcomb, and welcome to We Love Soap TV.
Hi, and I'm Damon Jacobs, author of Absolutely Shoulдлess, The Secret to Living the Stress-Free Life You Deserve, available at Amazon.com.
Hi everybody, I'm Jamey Giddens from Daytime Confidential. Whoops, no I'm not, but we're sitting here with the wonderful and fabulous and talented Jamey Giddens of Daytime Confidential, and we're welcoming him on our show today. Jamey, it's so great to see you.
Oh,
it's so great to talk with you.
Yeah, it's good to be here with you guys.
So, you are, I guess, for all intents and purposes, our rival. You are our Dorian to our Vicky. You are our Vivian to our Carly. I don't know what you are, but Daytime Confidential is our evil, evil rival, and we hate them. But actually, I love them, and I read Daytime Confidential every day. You run a fabulous website, and it's so great to be able to talk with you and just like kind of celebrate the spirit of what we're all doing out there on the internet, which is one of the things I just love about this. So I would like to know, first of all, how this came about for you in terms of writing for soaps. Like what soaps, I kind of know this already, but what soaps did you watch growing up? And how did you even get involved in watching soaps?
Well, I was raised by my grandparents, small town in Texas.
What was it called?
DeKalb Bears. Yeah. So was raised in a very small town with my grandparents. Old people are like the largest demographic for soap operas, especially minorities. So my grandparents, I grew up watching soaps. I can remember the time when I was at an age where I was still young enough to where if my grandparents were watching soaps and something salacious was happening, that I would say, no, Carl tried to kill Rachel today. And my grandmother would go, you get out of here and quit watching that. You quit watching that stuff. But then before long, they'd go to town or to a neighboring town to get their groceries, and when my grandmother would come back, she'd ask whichever of the older kids, her kids that were there, well, what happened on Another World or Santa Barbara or something, and they didn't know, but I could chime in, the whole beats of the story and basically act them out, and so it started to become pretty much, yeah, with their voices. So yeah, I became a VCR before we had a VCR for the soaps, and then I just, we grew up watching Y&R, Days, Another World, and Capital before Santa Barbara came on. Wasn't that the show before? And then, Santa Barbara. So I was an NBC boy with one CBS soap, which was Y&R. I always, wonder what made them switch after Y&R went off and go to the, the NBC lineup. And then, I guess by the time I got into my teens, it moved from being just something I enjoyed watching to just being what I wanted to do with my life, all I could think about. I wrote my own soaps, I acted them out, I mimic all these different voices, which I still do on our podcast, and I read every issue, I wasn't a big reader of Digest or the precursors to Weekly, but something about having that tabloid-sized magazine made me just devour every cover of Soap Opera Weekly. I read all of the, how they used to do the in-depth story bibles, back histories of other shows. So I learned about all these other shows that I didn't watch. And then when my shows started getting canceled, I started finding other shows. Like when Santa Barbara went off, 6 months before, when I started reading the rumors about Santa Barbara being canceled, I started sampling GH and Guiding Light. And I always tell this story. I didn't like GH at first because of Felicia's voice, and she was really heavy in the storyline at the time. I grew to love her, but I was like, I cannot watch the show with this squeaky woman. So I ended up watching Guiding Light, and became more hooked on Guiding Light at first because it was definitely more like being an Another World fan. I felt that similar vibe to that PNG show, so I loved Guiding Light. Long story short, ended up watching GH2, got hooked on the Sunny Brenda years, and became a big fan of that show. And then before I knew it, just between cancellations and new shows launching, I was somehow watching every soap on the dial. And yeah, so then, in high school I started really thinking about this is what I wanted to do.
This meaning like writing for them?
Writing, well, I've always had this dual love. I mean, I've been a big fan of primetime television too, with primetime soap operas and sitcoms, and I read voraciously trashy soapy novels. So, I didn't know if I wanted to, be the Black Jackie Collins, or if I wanted to be, the editor of, Soap Sizzle magazine or whatever. So, yeah, I just started looking toward that path, and, for whatever reason, fear or comfort, I stuck with more traditional career paths when I wanted to go for I wanted to do the big move to New York or LA at 18 and do it, but something always kind of held me back. I was really close to my grandparents, but it never just left. No matter what I was doing, it was always in the back of my mind. I was always on message boards once they became prevalent, and that's how I ended up with DC. Basically, directly prior to joining DC, a couple of years right after college, I had sent off an impassioned letter to Gabby Winkle at Soap Opera Weekly, basically asking for an internship, and she offered it to me.
All right.
And I was happy for about 10 minutes until the reality set in of living in New York, and it's so expensive, and it was an unpaid internship, and so how you let fear, you're a therapist, you let fear and stuff like that seep into your mind, and it's like, maybe I should just go with the good government job and forget about that. But I was never really happy, just settling with that. And so I was always on message boards, griping about how I would fix this soap or that soap or this soap or the other, and what I would do. And one of the fellow message board readers on the SoapNet board was like, you really should be writing a column. There's this site that needs a columnist. And so, long story short, and I know I've been saying that for a while. That's because I'm like,
it's interesting. I'm hearing this.
Long story short, I met Luke Kerr through that site, through the site that I was a columnist for. I didn't last long because
Is it still a site that's up today?
No, it's a defunct site now. But
what was it?
Can't say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so it was a One Life to Live columnist, and I had just started watching One Life to Live, and it was the Dana Higley years, and well, actually no, it was a little bit before the Dana Higley years. It was the end of the Santi stuff, and it was just a terrible show at the time, and terrible. I was not enthused to just write about that show, so I was like, bump this. And so, so then Luke started his own site, and he asked me for a good 6 months or so to join, and I was like, I don't want to do that.
Luke Kerr?
Yes, and I was like, because I was just like it's funny, I was just like the networks in a way. I had this preconceived notion about the online, even though I was on SoapNet and on message boards, I had this preconceived notion. I was like, I don't want to do that. It'll mess up my chances of getting in the industry. Nobody takes them seriously. But Luke just asked me to come onto the podcast as a guest. And I came on and I liked it. And then he was like, maybe you could write a piece every once in a while at your own leisure. And I was like, okay. And then before I knew it, I was just sucked into this vortex of Daytime Confidential. And, I love that.
Well, you started doing more podcasts, and those became very well received by the listeners, right?
Most of them.
But you got a lot of feedback
haters
from
to the left. I said haters to the left. But yeah.
We're going to talk about that too. But it sounded like you got on these podcasts and they were really popular. I mean, whether they were loved or hated, they became very popular. Mm-hmm. Is that a fair assessment? Yeah. Okay. So what about your contributions?
I'm the love to hate. I'm the love to hate villain of this.
Oh, okay. What made these podcasts so electric and start to get so much attention?
I think what we did that wasn't being done, at least in the podcast world, or really like the online world, was just be blatantly honest about what we felt about actors, about storylines, about writers. A lot of it, looking back, if I could go back, I would say that we probably wouldn't have gone. I probably wouldn't have called Ken Corday pig vomit so much, or, attacked Barbara Bloom in a vicious way. You know what I mean? It's like, I've learned as I've grown that you can still be critical without being insulting. But at first it was just, we're all these soap fans who are angry about the industry dying, and I've always been a big mouth person. And so if I get frustrated, and Luke is very calm, and so he would ask these questions that would just tend to make me react that way before I even realize. And I'm not blaming him, but he'd be giving them the benefit of the doubt, and before I know it, I'd be like, no, they're all asshats who want to kill soaps. And so it just, that kind of became, I guess, my niche that I was...
And I think you touched into a feeling that many people have, which is, I think, part of why your podcast, aside from your creativity and your spirit, you know, it's funny. But you also tapped into an energy that was really out there that nobody else was articulating at that time.
And they, well, you know, they do it, you know, for good, bad, or ugly. The people on the message boards do this every day. They just, you know, for whatever reason, you know, it gets so vicious, or there's not always as much credibility. But I mean, some of them are some of the most insightful people out there. But I do know that there is this notion within the powers that be that there's no need to listen to that. And some people would say, I know I had a conversation with Sarah Babel, who's a peer, that she feels like the internet would be better received if it was a better message. And I agree with that, but I also feel like what they're doing now isn't working, so they can't be that snobby about, oh, I don't want to listen to them because they're all crazy. Well, they might be crazy, but your shows are being canceled left and right, so something's got to give. And, you know, they go get these focus groups where they, you know, get someone online to just tell them, you know, to kill off Maureen Bauer, and you have all of these sites that are telling you what people want. And I'm not saying that you have to listen to every Liaison Fan 95,000, but, you know, you can get on there and see what, you know, if you're smart and you do know how to track audience response, the internet would be your first place to go, because if someone is diehard enough, and see, I'm gonna show I'm unbiased, to name themselves J-Sam Lover, then that person is trying to tell you what they want, as opposed to going, you know, on to get like 50 people to tell you that we don't want to see Kish. You know, it's...
Well, you know, it's like, they obviously are listening to somebody, whether it's focus groups or whatever, because we constantly see stories that are started and stopped and all this stuff. They just seem to have a negative connotation, and not even just message boards, even our own sites. It's been kind of a struggle at times to get any kind of respect or for people to take us seriously. And, you know, we are like so, you know, We Love Soap, we're just so like positive, constructive criticism, and even that's like they hate it. It's like they don't want to listen to that either. So it's like, it almost doesn't even matter how the message is presented. It's like, they, you know, and I remember my Wisner Washer interview recently when focus groups first started in the 80s, and it was like, he said 12 women in the Bronx were asked about all my children, and the ABC daytime president took their word for everything. Which characters to write off and which characters to keep, and everything was based on these 12 people, whereas on the internet you have thousands of people, and maybe some of them are really extra hateful or whatever, but there's a lot of clues in there about what people like and don't like as well.
Well, and Claire Levine suggested to us that they don't even really, like, she suggested the executives have what they want, and then they use the focus groups to support that. And the focus groups don't support that, they throw out the data. And she was giving an example of the triangle she wanted to write about Jordan Clark and Maureen Garrett and Justin Dees on Guiding Light. It was very well received in the focus groups, but it never got any airtime because they put the kibosh on that. So like in the internet then, when did you start working with Daytime Confidential?
2005, I think.
Wow.
No, wait, no, I'm sorry. It wasn't that long. I'm having a brain fart. I think David Kreisman put a microchip in my head. No, it's 2008, I guess. 2007, 8. Like, it's been about 2.5 years.
Okay, about 2.5 years.
See, I'm melding my knowledge, my time knowing Luke into, like, my time, because I was ghostwriting for the site, like, that day's writer before. No.
Well, just before we go, we talked, like, about fans and message boards, but Jamey has a journalism background. It's not like he was just a fan who loves soaps, like a lot of us. He has a journalism background. He is a great journalist. So it's not just a person who was a fan who also.
I didn't pay this guy to say yeah, it's, you know, it's been a situation where you look at primetime and film and the theater, every fashion, every other entity that is struggling, entertainment vehicle has embraced the web greatly to their success. You don't see Gossip Girl holding exclusives that they would give, you know, or leak to Perez, or, you know, because they want to hold it for Cindy Adams. But with the soaps, you see a lot of that. And I'm not hating, but it's just like, you know, we have all these diehard readers on our sites that really are committed to this industry staying in business, not just when Eric Braden does I'm Going Away tour, you know, but they bypass that and try to they're just like, the soap industry is really, it's a situation where they shouldn't feel that way because I think soaps are as viable as any other art form, but they have this ugly stepchild, you know, mentality to where it's like, please Variety, please, please Entertainment Weekly, when, you know, we're here, and I'm going to break all their news anyway, so, you know, why not just give it to us, and you guys are going to give better, you know, sophisticated critique, but, you know, it is what it is, and we're going to keep doing what we do, because we love it, and we love soaps, and that's why you guys have, like, started embracing indie soaps, and, you know, we're embracing a few, too, and so, I mean, the industry will live on. I mean, Charles Dickens, Shakespeare, they all did this type of drama. I mean, it'll live on. Whether it lives on daytime is, you know, up to the powers that be that don't seem to want it.
Right. What are the biggest changes you've seen in terms of working at Daytime Confidential on the internet in the past 2.5 years from when you started to March of 2010?
Okay, when I started DC, I'll tell you a trade secret. I booked all our guests through MySpace and Facebook because we couldn't get arrested in terms of being respected from the soap publicists. And until we made them have to respect us. When people like Victoria Rao chose us to tell her, you know, shocking Y&R experiences too, and when I started breaking stuff that, you know, or, you know, the way it started was I'd say, hey, I'm hearing all my children's all going to have to take pay cuts. They'd issue that's not true, and then all of them would swarm to deny me, and then Agnes Nixon would go to Advertising Age and say it was true. And then I'd say, hey, I'm hearing all my children's going to have to move to LA. Oh, that's not true. That's a rumor that's been in the zeitgeist for years. Where are they at? LA. You know, it became a situation where
you did break that story.
Yeah,
it's just be real.
Yeah,
it came your way, and Daytime, you broke that story on Daytime Confidential.
It's like,
for anyone else.
I always make the joke, they might hate me, but they have to read me. Because, you know, and then, you know, Nikki Finke is celebrated for that. But with us, it's like, you know, stop that. How dare you? That's supposed to be broken by this veteran journalist or that veteran publication. It's like, no, it's not going to be. You know, maybe if you worked with us and gave us exclusives, we'd hold back. But we have nothing to lose. I mean, and our site's very successful. And we've tapped in, we know what our audience wants. And we give it to them, you know. And we don't cross the line. We don't discuss personal lives at DC. That's not what we're about. We don't care who's screwing who, where they're screwing them. That's just not us. That's, you know, but in terms of the breaking news that's killing this industry, we're going to tell it, you know, whether we get invited to events or not. I mean, that's just what we're going to do. And it's like we've earned respect, you know, grudgingly because of that. And the major message is we want soaps to survive. It's not, we don't like saying the sky is falling, but when we say it, it's like you should get your umbrella because, you know.
Well, that's the thing, and we've all talked about this before, where certain like network executives, and I won't like say who, but we know who the network executives are, like they will always talk to Entertainment Weekly or Variety or whatever about some once a year feature about the industry, knowing that that feature is going to be gloom and doom, the ratings are down, everybody's tuning out of soaps, they're all getting canceled, and they'll talk to those people knowing that they're going to put out this horrible message to the public, and they won't, so a lot of people won't talk to us knowing we want to save it and promote it. And it's like so backwards. Yeah,
or we get our hands slapped. I mean, when I first, you know, and when I wrote the story about all my children moving to LA, my source gave me a quote that One Life to Live had almost been canceled and was, you know, basically hanging by a thread. You know, I got my hands slapped because of that, because it was like, don't say that. Well, why can Variety say it and Nikki Finke say it, but I can't say it? If it's the truth, it's like, that's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. No one is saying we want the show canceled, but when a primetime show is on the bubble, the fans mobilize, the fans are, you know, right now, what's that guy's name that does the OC and Chuck? Josh Schwartz.
Right.
He is on Twitter begging people, please watch Chuck now. This matters. Why aren't they doing that with One Life to Live as opposed to, you stop that, You stop saying it.
Like a recent article from a few months ago where Entertainment Weekly had the story with all the tombstones of the soaps and with like future tombstones. I'm like, but a lot of people would be interviewed by them, head writers, network executives.
If I had done that, I would.
But they would never talk to us in the first place a lot of times in terms of giving quotes or certain head writers or producers of shows.
Right.
But knowing that these people are going to put out a really negative message about your show and the whole industry, they'll talk to them.
Now, Ron Carlivati did talk to us, and I commend him. I think he's the only sitting head writer. Yeah, he's the only. We've interviewed a couple of other head writers from past, like Tom Racina and Victor Miller, but he's the only sitting head writer. And we were really gracious with that because we love One Life to Live and we've gushed over it, but we also go hard about the show. But he was gracious enough to, and we didn't. I think there's this. I look at it, what we do at DC is kind of similar to The View in how when it's just the 4 women of The View or the 5, they sit and but when we have a guest on, we're polite. I'm Southern. We're not gonna get you on there and so you piece. Yeah, we're not going to do that. I mean, but I think I've gotten that from PR people. I'm not comfortable. It's like, what do you really think we're going to get them on there and do? Like, so, tell me, why are you trying to kill their time? Da, da, da.
Well, that's the thing. You're never malicious and you're not disrespectful. And I think that gets confused. You are honest and you're often brutally honest. And you do speak truths that people don't want to say. But I've never seen you do an article or Daytime Confidential do an article that was malicious in form. And sometimes we know that the internet can be used for times by people on message boards who can be quite vicious. I did want to ask you about what do you see as the downsides of this media that we are using to communicate? What are the downsides of what you've seen happen in the last 2.5 years, if any?
Well, I'll tell you, we just did Broadway Cares, which you guys are both at, and I do think that sometimes we get so caught up, at least with DC, I will say this, we get caught up in our we know what's best mentality that we kind of lose sight of the forest of the trees, because I was at Broadway Cares and Nathan Parsons is someone that is not popular on our podcast, not popular with the readers on the site. I happen to like him, but I'm in the minority, and I think Jillian likes him, but most of the people on our site don't like him and the readers don't like him. But you guys heard when he came out on stage. Thunderous applause. Oh yeah. I mean, he was getting the same kind of,
screaming.
And so it's like, I do sometimes think that, a lot of people who might love this industry might not be logged on to these sites all day, and sometimes there's a majority thing. Like if, because a lot of people who hate Sonny Corinthos, I don't believe the majority of GH fans hate Sonny Corinthos, but if you go online, that's what you get. So I guess I'm saying that I do think that they should listen to us, but it shouldn't be like a desperate, sorry, Damon, I said shouldn't. It doesn't need to be a desperate, like, we've got to go listen to what these fans are saying. It's got to be tempered with like storytelling. And the main thing I really think, Bill Bell, from what I've heard from several people, didn't allow the network in his meetings. Bill Bell ran his show, and it was so successful for so long. I think that's the main problem with daytime, barring the internet, barring everything else, because they like to say that, the internet's ruining it because of the spoilers. They don't want the internet to spoil it so that they can let the magazine spoil it. That's the only thing. Please, it's like we're not ruining anything.
Who's putting out these spoilers?
Yeah, you just want to give the exclusives to the magazines. It's like, don't blame us when you're, there were several times when I'd be like, don't say, Talia's going to have a baby. And then 2 weeks later or 2 days later, I'm like, so I ruined someone's exclusive. It's not about, because they'll give me this lecture, you shouldn't want to ruin the experience for the fan. It's like, no, you don't want me to ruin someone's exclusive that you've promised it to. It's not about the fan. But I really think the main problem with daytime, barring all of the internet interference or internet promotion, is we need dedicated, strong, gifted storytellers who will be allowed to tell great umbrella continuing drama stories without having to deal with this focus group doesn't like Kish and Daphne du Play. Get rid of her. This focus group loves Kane and Lily. Play them 5 days a week. That's the problem. That's really in my opinion, the biggest problem daytime is facing.
Then following what you were saying earlier, do you think that it's in their interest to listen to the fans on the internet and pay attention to the message boards and the liaisons and the JSAMs? Is that in their interest or no?
I think it's got to be a comprehensive strategy of finding someone talented enough to write the shows and produce the shows and can produce them in this new economic reality that is not the glamorous 80s, someone who, like all the indie soap producers that Roger's always talking about, that can produce a very good product on a cheap budget, a good storyteller, then yes, definitely listening to the fans. And the ones on the internet, I think, especially because they're the ones that dedicated to log in. But that doesn't mean, okay, we have to put Liaison back together. But it's like, you have to have a common sense rationale with it. If we've got these many people fighting over Jason Morgan, why isn't there a triangle between why are we going to let our agenda or network-driven BS that doesn't want to see this happen make us create all these other storylines that aren't good when the fans are like dogs with a bone about this? It's like people used to kill for that kind of triangle. Rachel, Alice, what's his name? Steve. Come on. I mean, but they don't. If you build that kind of, it's already there. The fan bases are just, So it's like, but no, you'll hear that at network executive A doesn't like this, so they backburner this person, or network executive B identifies with Phyllis Newman or some character, so you want to, so she wants her played 7 days a week, and that, who cares? It's like, you're not a writer. There was a reason you're not a writer. Let it go. Move on. Some dreams are meant to be deferred. Just let the writers write it. That's just my take on it.
I'm not sure that there's like a Doug Marlin working at these shows right now, or Hardy LeMay, or Norman Phillips, but
Claire
Labine, but there's so much interference. Like, I never know, is it totally the writer's fault, or is it like some network person's fault, or somebody dictating? Like, I never know who's responsible for it anymore because there's so many people involved in these things.
Right. I think. I have a hunch that Ron's a great example, and I'm just saying this is my hunch, but I think he's a wonderful writer. I know he's a wonderful writer, and I get the sense that he doesn't always get to do everything he wants to do because there's barriers and there's focus groups and there's network interference. But I think he's a wonderful storyteller, and I think if he was really given a chance to tell a story and be left alone, we would be absolutely captivated by that. Now, we were talking earlier a bit about the haters and some of you got your lovers and you got your haters on DUC. So, the thing about the internet is that people have the freedom to often give opinions pretty anonymously and have them be instantly read. And sometimes I know we get the brunt of that. I know you definitely got the brunt of that. So what are some of what's typical of someone who might say something hateful, or what's an example of a hater?
Oh, well, okay. And this isn't about, I criticize, so of course I can take criticism, and I welcome everything. I mean, I do it all with a laugh. I know some people probably think but when I'm writing back to our readers, I'm really chuckling most of the time, because I'm just that type of person. I'll just keep giving back, Some people don't respond back, but it's a situation where, like from this I'll probably get, he's fat so he doesn't know anything.
So what do you do with that? So how do you handle it when people say things like that?
I'm childish, so I'll write, I'm fat, but you're stupid, and I can lose weight, but you can't grow a brain. And that's just how I am. But I mean, I've been like that since high school. And then I'll get, how dare you? Because there's this thing that because I shouldn't respond back, and I'm like, hey, you talk crazy about me, I'm gonna talk crazy about you. That's just how we roll. But and then there's some that'll be because Luke used to always tout me as the soap historian of the site, which I never told him to do that. So I used to get a lot of, Jamey Giddens, you are no soap historian. I have been watching Ryan's Hope since the days of Siobhan so-and-so. And I'm like, I never said I'm a soap opera historian. Luke says that, so write him a nasty letter. And I'm an abrasive person, and abrasive people get, I really felt like I arrived when I read on Television Without Pity that, I'm not going to watch the Emmys because Jamey Giddens is going to be on there and I hate him. I was like, really? You really hate me? I'm like, thank you. They hated Shannon Doherty. Maybe I'll get to dance with the stars one day. Haters will go hate. I mean, they talked about Jesus. That's what my grandmother used to say. So they talk about everybody,
So you've been able to
just spell my name right.
Just spell it J.
I tell people that all the time. Just spell my name right. Just spell
so does Jen Allen. That's the name of his book. Just spell the name right.
Yeah. So when they Google me, you go get my Google rating up. Just spell my name right.
Well, I really admire the way you approach that, instead of taking it seriously, because people can use words to really try to hurt. And I admire the way you're able to
well, growing up as a little boy who watched soaps and didn't play ball, you kind of learn how to deal with insults. In Texas,
did you get a lot of?
Yeah. So yeah.
Were there certain soap characters that helped you get through that time when you were?
Oh, Vicky Hudson from Another World.
Yeah. How so?
Because she didn't take any crap from anybody, not her mother, not anybody, and. Vicky Hudson was my girl because she would just, tear you up, and the Coreys were always hating on her, and she just kept bouncing back, and she helped Iris take control of their company. She just, I love Vicky Hudson as played by Anne Hesh. That was my Vicky was my I'm always if there's a top 5 list of my favorites, it's Vicky Hudson and Rachel. I mean, Rachel, I love me some Rachel Corey too. She was fire. So, that I identify with. And Jake, I mean, it's not just about the girls. There's plenty of, Jack Devereaux. I mean, Jack Devereaux and Jennifer. I mean, that probably helped me go to journalism school a lot because I love those witty, urbane characters that we just don't have in daytime anymore. Julia Wainwright, Capwell, and Mason, and Gina. I always liked the on-the-make grifter character, like the social climbing, scheming, kind of comic character. I don't know what that says about my personality, but yeah, I loved me some Gina Capwell.
We don't really see those anymore, though.
No, we just see these same old Perils of Pauline, Jessica, and then, and I do love Ron, so I don't want to use that example, but I just hate these stupid Perils of Pauline storylines.
But I think that spoke to, I also used soaps growing up feeling like an outsider and used the characters that were outsiders to relate to help me get through being teased or bullied or whatever. And I think soaps used to provide, that's part of why I love soaps so much, is because they have provided such a forum. And often these great characters that helped us to deal with strifes in our own lives. And I really don't know if the soaps today are doing that, or, I look for characters now for that, and I don't know if I see that the way.
Well, I mean, soaps have always had crazy storylines. Port Charles got frozen, whatever. But I think a lot of stuff, like you mentioned, the microchip, is so far removed from reality. It's not even based in emotion anybody can relate to. That's why I think the gay and lesbian storylines have resonated, because at least there's a segment of fans who can kind of relate to that stuff, like with Kyle and Fish, and and with Luke and Noah and Kyle and Fish, I've heard people say that this helped me come out, or this helped me do this, or it changed my attitude about it. And so those types of stories seem to still, even though they're all going away, but a lot of them are just so unrelatable. I can't relate to them, and it's
and the black storylines used to do that too. How many black people did you hear about Debbie Morgan and Darnell that black love has always been so taboo in television, and that hooked so many people. But that's been pushed to the side. I mean, All My Children has, several black characters, but the writing has been so terrible for them lately. And then, Y&R, which was the gold standard for so long, our readers joke that they bring out the black characters on the 1st and the 15th, which if y'all don't know what that is, that's welfare days, But it's and that's kind of what it is. It's they built their house largely on, strong black characters that I feel firmly were just as popular as the Victors and the Nickies and the this and the that. But we don't get that anymore. We don't get any of that. We don't get any diversity. Gay characters, black characters, Latina characters. The way the characters that reflect the way the world are going are just pushed to the side to still try to go after an audience of 1950s housewives. They don't exist anymore. The housewife is at work.
I know. We were talking about Lexi Carver on Days of Our Lives, and how she went from being, for many years, a supporting character, for 2 years, really being the front and center of a story, where she was the driving force, and she was very much the villain, but she was very much the heroine, and we rooted for her, and we hated her, and Renee Jones pulled it off without, she was so great at pulling out this duplicitous role and this sort of desperate.
And it wasn't a black story.
It wasn't a black story. It was just a story about a mother desperate to hold on to her child, and the lengths she was willing to go, and the fear that she was tapping into her Tamara side, and you got to see all this conflict play out for 2 years, and then they just like dropped it, and she went, and she even told me like I'm kind of the Maggie character, and of course now Maggie is front and center. But you know, it's like why are the Carvers pulled to the side?
We're seeing this, I think, at One Life to Live, and I hate to go there because I really love this show, and I hate to feel this way about them. But whenever there's a rating slip, whenever there's something wrong, it's always, let's get rid of the blacks, the gays, the diversity,
right?
And let's go back to a bunch of rich white people acting crazy with devils in their heads.
Because the rating slides could never be because of a white crazy man who comes back from the dead every few years to rape his daughter.
Exactly. And you know,
everyone wants to see that.
Exactly. Or cousins screwing on God and Light. And you know,
we talked about that a couple of days ago. Jamie and I had dinner, and it's like, what is deemed acceptable is disturbing. Like, cousins can go at it, incest is okay, but to have like, I can't even imagine like Emily Stewart, milky white character, having a dark-skinned black man lover, and would never happen.
They'd get hate mail. They would get hate mail.
But cousin sex is okay. Like what's
going after her ex-lover's son is fine.
What's acceptable and then what?
That's
not
why
acceptable.
I'm glad I'm not that mainstream audience that they're going after. Because One Life to Live had to give an interview. Frank Valentini had to give an interview where it was basically intimated that Kish, the gay couple, wasn't being received by mainstream audiences. Yet, this show just did a storyline where a psychotic religious leader came back from the dead, killed a man, dug another man up, and then the story culminated with him almost raping his daughter. A psycho stripper who had just given birth died in a frozen lake. But the gay boys were turning off that many viewers. It's like, come on, people.
Now, what do you think?
2010.
What do you think would have happened if you had gone the traditional route of becoming like a soap journalist for a magazine, or even perhaps a soap writer at Sunday?
I would have.
What would have happened?
Either I would have figured out a way to go up to take it over, like go all the way to the top, and like, you know, scheme and claw and like backstab my way to the top. Because that's how it's done.
Vicky Hudson it.
Yeah. Or I would have quit because I could not write, you know. Whoopie doopie. I mean, not all of them write that. There are some really great. Milo, who you guys have on, really goes there. She gives good opinions. Carolyn Hinsey
But
does.
once spoilers came along with the soap magazines, it became a lot about that. Like if you flip them, like the first like 60% of it is like spoilers, and it's all based on that, which. It's like they get passed around the internet, so I don't even. When I get my magazines in the mail, I've already read every single thing in them.
And the writers, those writers of those magazines, a lot of them, they feel the same way. And I've heard from a lot of them, they're like, "Oh, we wish we could do what you get to do," because but the networks won't let them. So I'm not slamming the writers because the networks will just embargo, working relationships with them. So they have to write,
Well, that's why I think
interviews where like if Damon's playing, Thrust Lavery on The Wind and the Rain, I can't interview him about what's it like working with, I'll only get to interview him about what Thrust is going to do next week. It's like
it's like 3 questions about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday stories. It's not like about his, you don't really get to
what's
know
your acting
process?
No, I can only tell you that Thrust is really going to be conflicted about going back between Wilhelmina and Fraulein. It's like, who cares about those interviews? I don't care about.
So here's a question, and without any specifics, I'm wondering, in your time as Daytime Confidential, have you ever had an ethical dilemma that you've had to resolve in some way about what to report or what not to report?
The Barbara Walters question.
I mean, what's the biggest sort of on the fence ethical dilemma have you had to face working on DC? How did you deal with it?
Because, I embrace this whole we're the soap tabloid label. I don't mind it because the tabloids are breaking John Edwards stories, but we're a tabloid about the industry itself. So we at DC, we choose the one thing that the magazines have gone by too, is that this industry is so close knit that there's kind of a protect the personal lives of people. And were we running a primetime and film site, we might not think the same way because that's acceptable there. But with daytime, we don't go there about people's personal lives. So we all know tons of salacious, nasty stories. But yeah, so we've had, people tip us off to this person was seen here, there, or where. But it's like, I don't care what they're doing in the bedroom. I just want them to give me a good story on my TV. So that's not what Daytime Confidential was founded for. So we've had those ethical. We've also had networks try to slam actors by using us, in the middle of, tense contract talks, trying to leak things to us that we know are not true. And that's what being a reporter is. It's not taking a leak and going with it. It's investigating. And see, that's why, no one would ever consider us reporters, but we are. We don't just run everything we get as soon as we get it, because a journalist is supposed to go and get the entire story and find out if the things that they're reporting are true before they run with it. So ethically, I just tend to do that. I mean, I tend to be the person that's like, no, we can't just run this, willy-nilly. We have to verify, vet this, check, double check, and I'm just a firm believer in, with sources, say it as they say it. I mean, that's just a big thing for me. I don't care, however a source gives me something, that is what I run. So ethically, I guess I treat DC the same way I did when I was a city editor of a newspaper, or when I was a publicist for the Department of Defense. I treat it with the same journalistic integrity that I was trained by, Jim Marvin from Southern Arkansas University. I do that. I just believe in that. I don't believe that, I don't treat it like this Us Weekly world where you can just, make things up as you go along. And I'm sure people think we do that because our content is salacious at times, but it's not about personal lives. And that's kind of where we draw the line ethically.
That's great. That's great. I admire that so much. And I'm glad you clarified that, because I see that, and I'm glad that we're talking about that. Is there anything that Roger and I have not asked you or talked about that you would like to speak to our We Love Soaps readers, watchers?
Yes. I want to tell you that this is the only exclusive interview that I will be giving on this subject. If you see anyone else saying that I, Jamey Giddens, am giving an exclusive interview, they're liars! Liars, I say! Can I be on the show? I just want to be back on the show. Please. I have as many covers as Eric. I've done my hair back blonde. I just want to be on the show.
Wow.
That was beautiful. I'm cracking up.
What? Oh, I'm sorry. What happened? The microchip.
Oh, I think Stefano got you. Jamey, I want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you for talking with us and making us laugh and making us think. Again, I
don't know why they're laughing. I mean, I'm trying to have a serious conversation.
I know. Well,
Jesus.
Again, so people can see your work at Daytime Confidential. Of course, everybody knows that, but I'm just going to...
And at the Boom Boom Room.
Okay! And we wish you the best of luck. I can't wait till you're here again, or, we just keep talking.
There we go. All right.
Thank you, Don.
Oh, Damon!
Yeah, Roger.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.